Hi everybody, my name is Ian Vair and I am the Green Mountain Chef. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have a lovely surprise for you. Valentine's Day is coming up and I decided to go with something a little bit different. Normally I go with a sort of a dinner theme. However, this time I thought it might be fun as a nice little treat for Valentine's Day to make a nice breakfast meal. Now, what better than a classic Eggs Benedict? Lovely poached eggs with hollandaise sauce, Canadian bacon, over English muffins. Now, of course, the mushroom enthusiast in me, I'm going to add a little bit of wild mushrooms into it. And to make it a little more fancy for Valentine's Day, I decided to bring in another French influence, some Florentine. Now, technically, the French borrowed this term from the region in Tuscany, Italy, Florence, the largest city in Tuscany. Now, they sort of have a certain style of cooking that they like. Technically, they like a lot of cream sauces with the addition of spinach. Well, back several hundred years ago, the French borrowed that term. And now, with many French dishes, with the addition of spinach, they refer to it as Florentine. So today, I'll be making Eggs Benedict Florentine. Okay, so let's get started. Now, hollandaise. Many of us make hollandaise from a packet or out of a box or something that we get from the store. And it's nice and easy, and we mix it in some warm water, and it's finished. Well, what many of us don't know is that hollandaise, believe it or not, is a very simple sauce. Technically, it is one of the 5 French mother sauces. Many of you might not have known that. Now, the base for hollandaise is in fact egg yolks. And what we're going to be doing is lightly whipping up and cooking the egg yolks with a little bit of fresh lemon juice, also some clarified butter to build that sauce. And that's what we will be draping over our luscious poached eggs on top of the English muffins and Canadian bacon. Yum. Okay, so let's get started. Now, I've sourced some nice local eggs from the farmer's market here in Vermont. Saturdays from 10 to 2, the Vermont Farmers Market runs, and there's many local vendors and friends and fellows and community and even family that attend that market. It's quite nice. Several of the ingredients from today I was able to source from the farmers market, which is kind of a trend that I do my best to stick with. Okay, so what we need to do first is separate the egg whites and the egg yolk. So we only want the yolk to go into the sauce. All right, let's see how we do here. You can do this a few different ways. You can crack all the eggs and then pull out the yolks. What I like to do is crack them and open them up right in my hands. It seems like a pretty easy way to go. Now, for this recipe, we're going to make a little more than a half of a cup. Now, this is a nice recipe for about anywhere from 4 to 6 poached eggs. Okay, so you could extend this. This would be a very easy recipe to double or triple or quadruple if you're making Eggs Benedict for a large quantity of people. But this is just going to be for 2 today. So 3 to 4 egg yolks for this recipe. I'm going to use 3. Now technically, in culinary school, they taught us that 1 egg yolk would actually sustain a full pound of butter. Not easy to do. Hollandaise is slightly volatile, and if we don't work with it exact ratios and temperatures, it separates, which isn't fun, which is probably why a lot of us just go to the store and go with the easier, I'm going to buy the packet and mix it up. But today, I'm going to go through the steps one by one. It's really not too bad, folks. Okay, so I have my 3 egg yolks. Remember, 3 to 4, and it's going to be very stable using that many egg yolks. Okay, now we want to create sort of a double broiler. And what we're going to do is I have water at around a poaching to simmering temperature, not boiling, all right? And the eggs are going to be slowly heated, and we're going to mix for a few minutes. We're going to whip them, excuse me. Now, if it's boiling, if there's too much steam coming underneath, it's going to scramble the eggs. We don't want to scramble them. As I'm whipping this, I'm going to go ahead and add in about a tablespoon of lemon juice. It gives it some really nice tanginess. Continue whipping. I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit, being very cautious to not scramble these eggs. Boy, wouldn't that be fun? Having a show on Eggs Benedict and having the chef destroy the hollandaise right on air. All right, so it's starting to foam up. Keeping track of my temperature here. Looks good. We're not boiling, just a mild simmer. This could take a few minutes, folks. So while I'm doing this, I want to go ahead and talk about the poached eggs, which is going to be our next step. So, poach, what is that? Technically, it's one of the 4 French cooking methods, wet cooking methods. We have a poach, a simmer, a boil, and a steam. There are 12 standardized cooking methods altogether, but let's just deal with poaching today. Now, poaching is a specific temperature range. It's approximately 160 degrees to 180 degrees. All right, once we get to about 185, it becomes a simmer. Well, what if we don't have a thermometer? What do we do? It's quite easy, believe it or not. When you look into the pan, if the bubbles are on the bottom of the pan, it's at a poach, okay? As soon as the bubbles start to rise, you're at a simmer, okay? Once they are beginning to circulate faster, it's a high temp simmer. And then, before you know it, it gets into a boil, okay? I don't know if you can see this, but we're starting to thicken up here. Remember, we don't want to scramble. Now, folks, I have chef hands. So some of you at home might want to have an oven mitt or a towel doing this. For me, it doesn't bother me, but you might want to. Okay, we're looking good here. Almost there. So, poaching our eggs, we want to be sure, and we're about to get into this, that we add them into water that is at that specific temperature. And what happens is the whites will cook and the yolks will not cook. It's very, very interesting. Okay, so if we can see here, everyone, it's nice and thickened, not scrambled. All right? And before we get into poaching, we need to build this sauce. We can't just set it aside and let it cool down. Temperature is key here. All right? So my water's not boiling. It's not even barely at a simmer. All right, I'm going to turn it down even more to make sure that I don't break this. So, this is very important. I'm using clarified butter. So I've melted the butter and I've skimmed all the fat off the top. What's important here is the rate at which I add it and the temperature. Okay? Now, how do I know if it's too hot or cold? Well, if it's cool to the touch, it's not hot enough. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot, okay? And literally, as I add this in, I'm going to add in a few drops. Continue mixing. A few more drops. Continue mixing. A few more. Keep going. Okay, our heat is actually wonderful, so I'm going to take this off and set down just so it's a little more stable. Got a paper towel under this, and I'm just slowly adding my butter. All right? A little more. A little more. It's very important to go slow. If you just pour this in here, you'll have a wonderful Eggs Benedict breakfast planned for someone special, and you'll be all frustrated with this sauce. You can do it. All right? Remember, temperature is key. Not too hot, not too cold. Rate at which we add the clarified butter. Not too fast. Now, the more we add, the faster we can add it. All right, so what's really, really important is those first couple of additions, so we just get a few drops. Now, if you notice that it's beginning to thicken a little too much, a little secret that I have is just add a few drops of water, warm water, and that'll thin it out a little bit. A few more. These are little chef secrets. Things like this we actually didn't learn in culinary school. Through years in restaurants, these are things that other chefs taught me. So now I have the opportunity to bring it into your lives and teach you. Okay, we're getting there. Now we're going to add approximately a half a cup. Okay, I have a little more butter here than that, so we're not going to add all of this. 3 egg yolks over the double broiler, tablespoon of lemon juice, constantly whipping. Once it's thickened, we slowly add our clarified butter. Remember, temperature is key. As you can see, I'm very focused here. This is important, folks. This is one of the 5 French mother sauces. If you can master this, you're doing great. Okay. A little more water. A little more butter. All right, that's looking really nice. I'm going to thin it out just a skosh more, and I'm happy. Okay, lovely. Now, traditionally, a little salt. Now, I use unsalted butter. Folks at home, if you use salted butter, taste this before you salt it, okay? Pinch of cayenne, just a pinch. All right, if you don't like cayenne, don't use it. It's not a big deal. We can see this, but this is lovely, almost like a custard. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and let's talk about these poached eggs again. I got into it a little bit. Poaching, the temperature, key, all right? How do I know? The bubbles are on the bottom of the pan, all right? They're not rising. As soon as they start to rise, it's at a simmer. All right, poaching, 160 to 180 degrees. That way, the egg white cooks, but the yolk stays intact. All right, so we have a nice, smooth yolk that bursts open once we get into this dish, a lot like an over-easy egg. Okay, so have some lovely, free-range, local organic eggs, and another key to this poaching liquid, which helps the eggs sort of pull together. A few dollops, about 2 teaspoons or a tablespoon of white vinegar. All right, another little secret there. All right, so I'm going to crack this open, and I don't just want to drop it right in. I want to take it right down to the water and let it just barely ease in. Lovely. And I'm going to do a few of them here. Sometimes they break, okay? It's not a bad idea to do 1 or 2 extra, just in case. Of course, being on the air, got to make sure that there's no mistakes here. All right, 1, 2, 3. Now they're nice. I don't know if you can see inside here or not, but they sort of pull together very nicely. Now they're going to take about 3.5 to 4 minutes. All right. So next on the list, and this is traditional with Eggs Benedict, is we're going to use some English muffins. And I have some locally sourced English muffins here. And I'm just going to split them in half. Safe knife skills, keeping my hand nice and flat here. I have a serrated knife. Okay. You can use a toaster. Here in the studio, I'll be using my broiler. Okay. Heat from above. This is only going to take a few minutes. All right, we've got to be very mindful of that. Now, I'm going to saute up some Canadian bacon. Canadian bacon is a lot like ham, believe it or not, folks. You could use ham. You could use bacon, in fact, if you couldn't source some Canadian bacon. I was able to source some for the show here, and it is traditional for this recipe. So I've got my pan heating up. I'm going to lightly saute that just to brown it a little bit and get it nice and hot. Remember, saute is another standardized cooking method. High heat, little fat. The fat I'm going to use today is clarified butter. Just a little bit here. Just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. All right, so if you're just tuning in, my name is Chef Ian Vair. Our program is Green Mountain Chef. I have programs that I make about once a month, and I live locally here in Rutland, and I'm a natural-born Vermonter. I work at the Vermont Farmers Market, and I'm a big advocate of our local farmers market. I'm also a mushroom enthusiast and a bit of an expert with wild mushrooms. So today, our Eggs Benedict is going to be lovely. I've just gone over the process of making homemade hollandaise. A little tricky, but you know, if we watch the episode and we look at the recipe at the end of the show, you'll be able to see the exact specs and be able to practice this at home. All right. You know, beyond working at the farmer's market and being a French-trained chef, I love to as a mushroom enthusiast, get out into the wild. And today I've actually brought a few of my freeze-dried porcini mushrooms, which is another very, very important culinary mushroom, choice edible that's heavily used in both French and Italian cooking. Okay, so here we are. Saute. We're going to cook a couple of these slices of Canadian bacon. Now, when you put that in the pan with saute, it should be, you know, you should hear that go right in. That's how you know your pan is hot enough. And when you put your oil in, it should be dancing around the pan a little bit. Now, if it's smoking, it's too hot. You want to turn your heat down, but this is nice right here. Okay, let's see. I have my English muffins under the broiler. Just a couple minutes under the broiler was worked out pretty well. All right. Let's take a look at our eggs. They are very happy. Okay, the Canadian bacon looks nice. We're going to go right on the English muffins. Now, our poached eggs, about 4 minutes is what these have been in here. Now, if you don't like them runny and you want to cook them a little more so that your yolk is nice and soft, or excuse me, so your yolk is not soft and more firm, you might want to cook it 5 or 6 minutes. These have been, they look lovely. These have been in there maybe 4 minutes at the most. Okay, lovely. All right, so this Eggs Benedict Florentine. Remember, Florentine, what does that mean? See, this is what we don't want, folks. Just give that a moment. Florentine means the addition of spinach in our dish. Of course, being the mushroom enthusiast that I am, I'm going to add some wild mushrooms. Porcinis are what we're using today. I have a few that I've rehydrated. Just going to slice them up. Okay. All right, our pan looks good at this point. A little bit of fat in there, that clarified butter. I'm going to give it just a tiny bit more. I'm going to add a little garlic. I have some fresh garlic from the farmer's market. Just slice that up a skosh. Give it a bit of a dice over top. Lovely. All right. Our mushrooms are caramelizing in the pan. A little bit of garlic. I probably only used about an ounce of mushrooms, folks. Garlic-wise, I'm only going to use about a half of a clove. Now, I don't want to burn my garlic, okay? So this is only going to be in here very, very briefly until I add my spinach, making this dish Florentine. Eggs Benedict Florentine with wild porcini mushrooms. Yum. All right, so far we have the caramelized porcini mushrooms, we have our fresh garlic, our spinach, just a skosh, some kosher salt, pinch of black pepper, my hollandaise is holding off to the side. Now remember, we want that to be in a warm place, okay? If you're going to make your hollandaise ahead of time, which I actually kind of recommend, and in restaurants we would make it ahead of time and use it for service throughout the shift. Just make sure it's in a nice warm spot. Okay, that looks lovely. So, poached eggs on top of Canadian bacon with our English muffins, locally sourced, lightly browned. We're going to take our sauteed spinach and garlic and porcini mushrooms and just drape that right over the top. That looks nice. Yum. Okay, almost there, folks. I like to use a little bit of garnish. So, some parsley I was able to source that I'm just going to barely chop up here. Take out any stems. Now, not really time today to make some home fries or hash browns or some kind of potato product, but you definitely could. You could even have some bacon on the side, even though there is Canadian bacon here. A lot of us like our traditional smoked bacon. All right. Hollandaise to finish it up, and this is nice. It's going to get draped right over the Eggs Benedict. Eggs Benedict Florentine with wild porcini mushrooms. Just a little bit of garnish around the side. Now, this is a fun dish, okay? I decided to make this going into February with Valentine's Day coming up. This could be a nice little treat for your loved one at home, but this can be a dish that we make anytime, all right? Now, the mushrooms that I add into this, they're not a requirement by any means for the recipe. The Florentine, the spinach, is not a requirement for the recipe. Not at all. But why not dress it up a little bit? Why not make it a little fancier? Okay, I'm a French chef, and for those that are cooking something nice for their loved one at home, why not dress it up a bit? Okay? I hope that we learned a bit about the hollandaise process today. Remember, it is a French mother sauce. Hollandaise is one of the 5 French mother sauces that can go on many different dishes. Now, I generally only make it for my eggs Benedict, personally. Other chefs use it on all kinds of other dishes, whether it's a stuffed chicken or it could be a fish dish. There's times that we would top something in restaurants with seafood and a seafood hollandaise. So this is something that doesn't just have to be used for a breakfast meal. And in the future, I will be making this sauce again and demonstrating it in another manner. Okay? So if any of you have questions about this, check out the recipe at the end, all right? Like I said before, there's going to be lots of specs, very exact ratios on how much of what to use. This recipe can be very easily doubled, tripled, quadrupled. This can be made for 2 people. This can be made for 10, 12 people, all right? Now, remember, patience. Temperature, time and temperature is what is the key for this recipe. Too hot? No good. Too cold? No good. The sauce separates. The eggs cook too much. So remember to adhere to those principles. All right, very important. French cooking is not the most difficult thing to do, but there are principles and specs that are very important to be adhered to. So thank you everyone for watching today. I do hope that we learned a few things. Thank you for being patient with me. It's difficult to make something like this on the air a la minute, but it's a lot of fun. You know, I came into this, I was a little nervous doing this. I said, you know what, Ian, just go have fun. So I hope you are able to have fun at home. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Please come down to the Rutland Farmers Market. This time of year, actually, it's the Vermont Farmers Market. It's a wonderful building over on West Street here in Rutland. It's very large, wide open aisles. We have all kinds of produce and artisans that are there. I have a little business there. If you're into prepared foods and mushrooms, come see me. But there's many of us that live locally. We're very passionate about what we do. As you can see, I'm going to, with the types of food that I make on the air, I love what I do, and I'm going to continue doing this and bringing simple, delicious, French, locally sourced ingredients and meals to you on a regular basis. My name is Ian Vair. I am a Green Mountain Chef. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Take care.